Hi, everyone. Before we start today, I'm going to need to ask you if you hear everything all right, because for one, for some reason, on my end at least, the video is being very slow, and I can see how there is a delay in me like moving. So hopefully that doesn't affect the sound. Maybe it just affects the video, which is still annoying, but not nearly as annoying as affecting the sound. So yeah. Hi Armin. Hi Theo. So guys, please let me know if you also have this like gigantic delay in me moving and me speaking and stuff, because I definitely do. Hi Praxis. Yeah, so let me know if it's feasible or if it's not feasible. And we'll go from there, because I definitely see that something's wrong. So you let me know. Hi, Pamela. Oh my gosh, good to see you. So good to see you. Movement funny, but sounds fine. Yeah, I don't know what's up. And I've like reloaded my computer too. And like weird thing is when I turn my camera, my like FaceTime camera, it's fine. When I use my camera, like I move like through the space and time continuum. But weird, very weird. It like bugs me, but I'm just gonna try not to look at the screen. Okay, so hi Jahardadive, hi Praxis, hi Kayla, hi Jillian, hi Joe, hi Crazy Cat, hi Armin, hi Theo, and oh my gosh, Pamela, so good to see you. Hi Humbak, hi Giovanni. I'm from Ukraine. Oh, hi Latvia. Good to see you. Hi Willie. Hi Alex. So yeah, so hi everybody. Today we have a little bit of news. One of the things that I want to start with is hi Juju. One of the things I want to start with is hi Juju. Hi Kevin. So one of the things I want to start with. What are the things that I want to start with? Well, first of all, one second. There is a person that just came onto the stream, asked me where I'm from, and then and then asked me if I'm single. Well, first of all, that is inappropriate. Whether I was or whether I wasn't, I would not be going out with you. I would not be going out with any creepy individual who comes onto the stream titled Ukraine News and asks if you're single, because, you know, read the room. Also, I'm not an object. Okay, just because I'm a woman and I'm streaming online doesn't mean that you get to harass me about my marital status. Okay? I'm here to read the news, not to get you asking me if I can be an object of your attention. Okay? Done with that? Anyways, hi Diane, good to see you. Good sources to read about history of the war since 2013. So first of all, the war did not start in 2013. It started in 2014. The Gates of Europe is a very, very good book that you can read about, about the original invasion from, which is like a very, 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 hi Netlin, a very, very good book. Then someone's asking me if I'm Ukrainian. Yes, I am Ukrainian. Thank you so much. Hi, Jen. But yeah, so hi, Vata. I have read The Gates of Europe, and it's a fantastic book. Yeah, The Gates of Europe is a really good book. So you can start there. And also, there is a bunch of different books, and I have a video on my TikTok. If you scroll way down, I give names of a bunch of different books that are relevant to Ukrainian history. But Gates of Europe is a very, very good book. Okay. Hi, Mariana. So, what's on the agenda today? First of all, let's talk about the thumbnail title, which is Hi Todd, which is Russians are not retreating from Kherson, and Kherson retreat is misinformation. So, Zelensky today gave a speech, and in that speech, he said that Russians are not ready to retreat from Kherson, and everybody who says that they are is spreading misinformation. Well, here's the thing. They're not retreating from Kherson. They're crossing the river to the other bank. And unfortunately, Russians are there to stay, and they are going to be standing there while they can. And we are going to have to quite literally smoke them out of there. I mean, not quite literally, but as in metaphorically speaking, we are going to have to smoke them out from there because they're not going to give up so easy. And Kherson for them is a very important strategic location. Kherson is also quite difficult to get, not only because it's quite difficult to get, it's also because it's quite difficult to get to. Kherson is a plain, and warfare in this region is much more difficult than warfare in other places, because now that it's also getting cold and there is a season of rains and stuff like that, it's mud. It's just mud everywhere. Kherson is like, imagine all of those pictures of the Ukrainian flag where you see the wheat and the sky that illustrates what the colors stand for. That's Kherson. That's what Kherson looks like. It's plains. So it's very hard to get to. It's there's nowhere to hide. You have to dig trenches. You have to. It's strategically very, very hard to get to, and for Russians, it's a strategically incredibly important place. So they're not just going to be retreating from there, anytime soon, unless they are really forced with no other choice, which I hope they soon will be. But they're not just fleeing on their own merit. Now, question. On YouTube, on Twitter, and most other places, I posted a link to an article titled, What Are the Pillars of Russification? And I know a lot of you read it, but how many of you read it? I read it yesterday on live on just TikTok, but it was an evening live, so most people weren't on it. And it's an explanation of what Russification is, combined with my personal experiences. So, as you guys know, I very often will read stuff out for you because I know that otherwise a lot of people are not going to have time to sit down and read it. And certain things I write because I consider them important, and I think that it's good for people to read them and to hear them. Hi, Graham. Good to see you. Also, my voice is like going away today. It's really annoying. I've been doing a lot of like voice work, and so I think my voice is just tired. Evening lives are fun and full of trolleys. Yeah. Hi, Anik. Hi, Anik. So yeah, so how many of you guys have read the article so far? And would you want me to read it right now on live? So the article, again, I'll repeat, is titled "The Pillars of Russification," and it basically explains what Russification is in layman's terms, and my personal experience with Russification as a kid growing up in Lviv, which is arguably the least Russified area of Ukraine. So please let me know what you guys think. Haven't yet. I just noticed this morning there was posted up. Yeah. I posted it pretty late last night. For now, driving home. 50-mile drive. Wow. Oh my gosh, Todd. Well, good luck. Oh, thank you, Todd. But yeah, good luck. I haven't read it yet, but I intend to. Okay, well, okay, alrighty. I will read it. I will read it then. Okay. So we talk about Russification every day, and I realized, that most of the times that I speak about Russification, I don't necessarily talk about my personal experiences or what kind of Russification I've endured, sort of. I usually just explain what Russification is in general, and so I wanted to do. I wanted to do. I wanted to dive deeper so people can understand what it's like from personal experience, right? Okay, so first of all, I spent quite a bit of time on this thumbnail for this article, the art. So I'm gonna show it to you because I'll show it to you on YouTube first, and then I'll show it on TikTok. I thought it was very well done. Well, I mean, I did it, but I just really liked how it turned out. And after I'm done reading it, I will ask you guys, if you don't mind, to go on Medium and clap for this article if you liked it, because that way it helps spread the article for more people to see it. Okay. What are the pillars of Russification? Is the question I was asked the other day while guest speaking on a podcast that details the war. At that moment, I didn't think of sharing my personal experience to illustrate the meaning of the word, and simply said it's erasure of native, Ukrainian in this case, culture, and substitution of it by Russian culture. Truth be told, I could have done much better on describing the concept, as one can't portray it enough in one simple sentence. Russification runs very deep and comes in many, often unexpected forms, just like any colonization does. It aims to impose the idea of the colonizing nation's superiority. In layman's terms, we are better than you, and you must want to be us. I'll tell you some personal stories that should, I hope, paint a clear picture on what it really means to live through and with Russification. But before that, I want to give you a bit of a relevant background on my childhood. My home. A beautiful city in western Ukraine, an hour away from the border with Poland. Lviv, Austro-Hungarian architecture, cobblestone roads, majority Ukrainian speaking. It's often deemed to be the epicenter of all things Ukrainian, and propaganda often paints it as the root of all Russian hating and evil. Why? Our rich history of resistance movements, geographical proximity to Europe that helped us dodge most things Russification, and the label of the cultural capital of Ukraine, of course. My family. My dad is, as we like to joke in Lviv, a Banderite, a follower of Stepan Bandera. He truly isn't, but Russians like to think that we, Western Ukrainians, have deemed Bandera God, and under his supposed teachings, frequent eating Muscovite newborns for breakfast. Well, we obliged and adopted the rhetoric. A Ukrainian patriot to the core, he was raised in a modest family whose roots originate from a small town in Lviv region, populated mostly by the people carrying our last name. In other words, they founded the village, and you can trace my heritage back to the beginning of times in the area, so to speak. A fact my father couldn't be more proud of. No, really. I recently did a DNA test and found out we have roots stemming from Cossacks in Zaporizhia, to which he said, "It can't be. This thing is faulty. We are from Lviv." Just like, a man who denies Zaporizhia Cossack roots, like. My mom comes from a family of immigrants who until recently thought they were originally Russian, though always identified as Ukrainian. Both of her parents moved to Lviv from Moscow region and Siberia in mid to late 1940s. If you ask them why, they'll say, well, I'm not sure. Perhaps we were running from the war. Regardless, both of them adapted really well. My grandpa went on to become a celebrated Soviet gymnast, highly respected in the sports community, and grandma built a banking business, known by most locals. To sum it all up, I had bilingual parents. A typical day in our kitchen entailed me turning to my mom and speaking Russian, only to switch to Ukrainian a moment later when answering my dad. That might be why I flip-flop between English and others with ease today, but I digress. Russification. Remember that DNA test that got rejected by my dad? Well, my maternal grandparents did one too. As it turned out, they had not a trace of Russia in their heritage. So, how did they end up there to begin with, then, you ask? Well, the keyword here is Siberia. My great-grandfather was a Chernivtsi Jew sent off into a gulag, pretty much. Great-grandma, though born in Novosibirsk, did not know much of her family history as no one was allowed to speak on it. Based on the DNA results, her parents were of Ukrainian and Balkan ancestry, though. You do the math of how they wound up in the middle of the cold and snowy year-round Gulag Central nowhere, and why from that time on they chose to simply drop their origin history and teach their kids, you are a Russian. My grandpa, well, he doesn't know his dad. He doesn't even know the man whose last name he has now carried for over 80 years. Why? They both were sent off to the Russo-Finnish Winter War as cannon fodder. The irony here? Turns out that his father's ancestry was Baltic, according to that same nifty spit in the tube. Yep, you guessed it. The Soviets sent a Baltic man to die in the conquest of a Baltic state. Oh, how poetic. Natalia, my grandpa's mom, passed her name along unto his firstborn daughter, my mom, and left the world not having told us a lick about where we all came from. She didn't know. The nifty test, however, did. She was supposedly Balkan, whose family as well most likely adopted the policy of just say we're Russian, it's easier that way. Now let's go back to the 40s. So why did my grandparents really move to Ukraine? The so-called Russian-hating West, nonetheless. Stalin. They moved because grand old Uncle Stalin encouraged families from far remote regions to move to Lviv to help develop it under the guise of a booming labor need. In simple terms, my ancestors, albeit unwittingly, came to colonize and Russify. Along with thousands of families alike, they settled in. What's wrong with that, you might think? Well, provided they were Russian-speaking, they hoarded nicer jobs generously offered to them by the good old Commie Party and seeped through into Ukrainian communities, unwilling to learn the language and forcing locals to adapt. You might say, wow, I can't believe this. In Lviv? Yeah, in Lviv, where my grandmother has lived for over 70 years and still didn't quite manage to learn how to speak Ukrainian. Why? She never had to. Side note here. She made sure her younger child, well, my mom as well, my aunt, spoke Ukrainian and went to a Ukrainian school because, and I quote, we are Ukrainian, you are Ukrainian. You should live in a Ukrainian information space. Now we move on to me. Born in 94 in freshly independent sovereign Ukraine, eager to breathe the air of unrestrained national identity. You'd think Russification would be done with at this point. I think so too, but both of us would be wrong in making that conclusion. Ukraine was young, our leaders were the same old guys from Commie Party, our infospace was largely dictated by that of Russia, and so it all began again. But sadly now. So I, a 10-year-old or so child in Lviv, who spoke Russian fluently, felt superior to my Ukrainian-speaking classmates who didn't. Did my parents ingrain that in me? No, the media did. Russian shows did, Russian movies did, literature did. I remember watching shows that all glorified the mighty Russian culture. Until the mid-2000s, our channels broadcast what Moscow fed to all us post-Soviet satellites. And worst of all, our channels were too new to have the funds to dub it in Ukrainian. Those shows put Russians on the pedestal of the Slavic world. See, it so happened that I'm good at languages, and that I speak the kind of proper, literary Russian with no Ukrainian accent. The kind where Russians couldn't tell that I am from Ukraine. I often, in my later life, was asked by them if I am from St. Petersburg. And as a 10-year-old, the passing for a Russian made me feel as better than most my peers. Why wouldn't it? When Moscow shines the Kremlin on TV and fills your dreams with images of one day living on Arbat, like all successful people do. I'm lucky. I'm incredibly lucky that my parents, upon hearing these views, explained to me that there is nothing shameful in being Ukrainian and monolingual and not passing for a Russian. Parents who explained exactly why this worldview is wrong and damaging. Parents who insisted I learn my history, I learn traditions, I deep dive into culture. Oh, and to all my Ukrainians, that summer, instead of having fun with friends, my dad made me read Tarasov's Taras's Ways, a 400-ish pager autobiography detailing Taras Shevchenko's struggle against the Russian regime. I hated him for it then. I couldn't be more grateful now. But how is it that my parents still had to face this issue with their child? The extent of Russification. In mid-2000s, Novy Kanal, verbatim translated as New Channel, and entered Ukrainian infospace, largely oriented towards youth. The good old Soviet echoing shows became no more, and Latin American series came center stage, all dubbed with a Ukrainian voiceover. I recently had a conversation with a friend wondering why we watched so many telenovelas as teens. We couldn't understand what drove our producers to land specifically on shows like Florecienta, Argentina, Rebelde Way, Argentina, The Woman with the Scent of Coffee, Colombia, Clone, Brazil, and etc. Looking back at it, I understand that our barely formed media didn't have the resources to execute our own shows and resorted to filling the air with literally anything that wasn't Russian. And something tells me that those were the only shows we could afford to buy the rights to. Now, let me specify here. I actually like the shows. I think they're good shows. It's just strange that Ukraine would be buying shows from Latin America specifically, right? I think that because both our economies weren't really like top notch, those shows were affordable for us. Fast forward to my junior year, foreign lit class. Our teacher assigns that we memorize a Russian author's poem to recite. A one-page long monstrosity that isn't double-spaced and doesn't rhyme. And you are allowed to recite it in the language of the original, not the Ukrainian translation, for an extra credit grade, if you wish, but there is a catch. Only if you can speak that same proper Russian with no Ukrainian accent. Reason? Oh, Miss Educator was originally from Mordor and deemed our Western pronunciation as somewhat of an ear bleed. Now we are in Lviv. Out of my whole class, the only two people capable of doing so were I and another guy, as we used Russian at home with native speakers. Why would Ukrainian kids be required to recite Russian poems for extra credit without an accent? Why would we have no accent in a foreign language? Why were we not given the same option for French poems, English, German, Spanish? We learned them all in Ukrainian translation. Would she have cared if we didn't have pristine pronunciation while trying out for reciting French? She wouldn't have. I got my extra credit. I soothed her colonizing ears. I was so proud of my grade. Now, writing this piece over a decade later, I feel ashamed. I should have stood up. I should have reported her. I should have gone to the media. I should have made some noise. I shouldn't have basked in the glory of having been successfully colonized. And then you in the West ask us why we, Ukrainians, aim to remove Russian from our space completely, and whether it's infringing upon people's rights. All of the above is why. Russia and Russian infringed upon our rights. I hope that in the near future, no kid will feel inferior for speaking their native language in their own country. No kid will feel superior for having fallen victim to imperialism. No kid will have a seed of doubt that being just Ukrainian is more than enough. The end. So yeah, that is the article, and I thought it was incredibly important to share and read and write because well, it's the sort of, I think when we talk about Russification, right, we talk only about big things as, Stalin's genocides. We talk about big things like assassinated Renaissance in Ukraine, so the 60 years. We talk about authorities quite literally assassinating Ukrainians for wanting to be Ukrainian, right? But we don't talk about the more subtle Russification. We don't talk about modern Russification. We don't talk about the fact that, and I tell you this with utmost responsibility, probably every Ukrainian kid at some point who lives in the United States or any other multicultural country where you can meet Russians at some point tried to appease Russians and make them look at you as an even. Also, Gianmarco says, I saw Zelensky interview with our most famous newspaper. He did amazing as always. Love him. Corriere della Sera. Yeah, I want to read the whole. I want to read the whole interview, but yeah, Corriere della Sera is a very very good newspaper. It's like Die Welt. It's like the Italian version of Die Welt. But yeah, so basically, I will tell you that every single Ukrainian kid has had an experience with Russians, with having to appease Russians. You know, I and you know my stance. You know how incredibly uh, Ukrainian, loving and Ukrainian, um, promoting I am, right? You know how much I stand up for Ukraine and you know how much I stand up for all things Ukrainian. But even I have fallen victim, not one time, to this sort of appeasement of Russians, right? When I was in boarding school, there was a large group of Russians, and I'm pretty sure I was the only Ukrainian there. Yeah, I don't remember any other Ukrainians. But there was a generally very, very large group of Russians who obviously immediately started flocking all together because that's what Russians do. And I somehow ended up in the middle of that circle. There were lots of post-Soviet people that all basically just kind of like magnetized into that group. And I had two very good friends. One of them is still a friend today, and they're Azerbaijani. And one of them was this girl from a city near Moscow who was very sweet, and we were good friends. And at some point, so first of all, one of the things that I always heard from Russians was, "Oh my gosh, where are you from? St. Petersburg? You sound like you're from St. Petersburg." Because my Russian is very it's very Russian. There is this thing where Ukrainian people very often pronounce Russian g as h because we use h more than we use g. And because my grandparents spoke very proper literary Russian, they also taught me how to speak very proper literary Russian. And my grandpa would always be like, "Oh, don't h," like he was always like, "Oh, stop doing this. It's so like annoying. Like say it properly." And so I have a very like clean Russian. And so what I would always hear is Russians being like, "Oh, are you from St. Petersburg?" And then I'd be like, "Oh no, I'm from Lviv." And they'd be like, "No way. From Lviv and you speak Russian this well? Can't be. Did you like grow up in Russia?" So, I could not have been a Ukrainian, more so from Lviv, and speak clean Russian. Come on, I'm Ukrainian. I have to sound awful in Russian. You have to be able to make fun of my Russian because, it's supposed to be the Ukrainianized Russian. Like, it just didn't fit in their head. And also, Ukrainian from a nationalist city, as they think. The amount of times I've been asked by Russians about, wait, in Lviv, you were allowed to speak Russian? What? Did they not kill you there for that? Do you have to do you just speak it at home secretly? And the amount of times I had to literally explain to Russians that, we live in a civilized society, and yes, most people are not super keen on the fact, on Russian, and most people don't speak it, but no one's gonna freaking do anything to you for speaking Russian. As in it was surreal. It was surreal because in Lviv, we have a lot of, we have some themed, Ukrainian nationalistic themed restaurants because again, Russians like to think that we eat Russian newborns for breakfast. And so we kind of played into the theme and we made these tourist attractions that are aimed at ooh, we are Benderites, right? And so, basically, I thought that it's a joke that Russians think that in Lviv they would be killed, mugged, and lynched for speaking Russian. And turns out, no, they actually think that, or at least did 10 years ago. And to me, it was so surreal. From someone who like grew up speaking both languages, freely open in public, like no one has ever been like, "Oh, are you Russian?" Like no one has ever asked me that. Like everybody knows I'm Ukrainian. I speak Ukrainian. My information space is Ukrainian. My friends are Ukrainian speaking. My dad's Ukrainian. I'm Ukrainian. Like no one's ever had questions. No one's ever been like, you speak Russian? Like it was just so surreal. So surreal. And the fact that I had to explain it to them, to me, it was like, I was, as much as they were shook that I am from Western Ukraine and I speak Russian, and that I'm not like a Banderite and I'm not here to annihilate them, I was shook that this was real life and I had to actually prove and explain to people that no one lynches Russians in my city. And I had to give them like vivid real life examples. Like, I'd be like, hey, well, my grandmother doesn't speak Ukrainian. She runs a business. People like this business. She is like one of the most popular bakeries in my city at the time. Like everyone knows her. Everyone respects her. No one's ever had a problem with her speaking Russian. Like, as in like, it was incredible to me. Another thing was, so that friend that I mentioned earlier, the girl from near Moscow, obviously no one had anything to say to my Russian, but then there are certain things that I borrow from Ukrainian when I speak Russian because I don't think about them. Like in Russian, if you were to say, let's go that way, like let's choose that path, you would say, let's go tуда. Like, in Ukrainian, if you were to say, let's take that path, you would conjugate that and you would say, let's go tudoyu. You can also say tuda, but most likely you would just say tudoyu, right? Or let's go this way, you would say sudoyu. In Russian, you would say tuda, suda. In Ukrainian, tudoyu, sudoyu. And I was not aware that you do not conjugate these things in Russian because, like, why wouldn't you conjugate it? It's kind of like in German and in other languages, like you have, oh, look, that path, and then you are taking the path, right? So it's a different like structure of a word and of a sentence. And so I said, well, let's go tudoi. And I said that in Russian. And oh my incredible God, the amount of times that I had to hear from this girl and from the Russian friends every freaking day, my nickname lovingly had become Tudoy Sudoy. Because I dared to say one thing in Ukrainian or Ukrainianized when speaking Russian, and they just couldn't let it go. And the entire thing came out with, oh my gosh, what did you say that in Ukrainian? Oh my God, that sounds like a kid trying to learn how to speak Russian, but just like not knowing how to do it. Oh my God, it's such a funny language. Like, wait, you really say that? Oh my God. And they absolutely couldn't let it go. And that became my nickname. Not like, no one was like using it and, and no one was using it in like a, how would I say, offending fashion according to them. It was just cute. It was funny. It was cute. It was like so Ukrainian. Like, oh my gosh, finally, we were starting to think you were Russian. We were starting to think you were not really Ukrainian. And like, finally, like, all you stupid Ukrainians obviously revealed your Ukrainianness by saying something stupid sounding. That was pretty much what it was. That was pretty much what it was. And I remember feeling so bad. I remember being like, crap, well, if only I didn't say that. Maybe they wouldn't make fun of me. Maybe they would not like think that I don't speak Russian well. I was so upset I was like, and I made it my fault. I thought it was my fault that I didn't learn how to speak Russian properly. I thought it was my fault. You know? Like, I thought I wasn't good enough for them. And if you ask any Ukrainian kid, pick one, who has ever interacted with a Russian, they have the same story. Russians always say that our language sounds like a kid trying to speak Russian but not knowing how to. They always say, oh my God, Ukrainian sounds so silly. They always make fun of our pronunciation. They always belittle us, and they always make us feel like lesser than without even realizing it sometimes. Another time I made a mistake was, in Ukrainian, we say, if you want someone to like get something out of your way, you would say zabari. Zabari. In Russian, there is a word zabiri, and there is a word uberi. So apparently, like, my friend had like, he was like doing something, and he was like moving his arms like everywhere, and I was sitting right next to him on like our bunk beds, and it started annoying me because his hands were like flying into my face. And so I reacted. I like took his hand like this, and I was like, oh my gosh. I said zabiri, your hand, or like your arm, right? Which means like take your hand away. But in Russian, you can't say zabiri in that context. You have to use uberi. In Ukrainian, you don't have the word uberi or uberi, so you just use zabari. And that's like a normal thing. You would just say zabararuku, But in Russian, you have to use a different word. And that was the next time where they started laughing so loud at me saying that, and they were like, oh my God, what? Oh my God, that's so funny. And so from Tudoy Sudoy, I became Ubiri Zabiri. Okay. And that was also another thing that they absolutely just couldn't let go, because you have to find something you have to make fun of a Ukrainian kid for. You absolutely have to. And it's funny to me that these would be the people who are making fun of me for language skills. Meanwhile, all of these same people were cheating off of my placement test in English because they didn't freaking know how to speak English properly, and they happened to be set next to me. And they knew that I speak English well. And so all of them basically ended up in our boarding school in classes that they couldn't handle because they cheated their placement test off of me. And half of them were not able to write, read, or speak English on like even an intermediate level. And I've never, ever made fun of them. Not a single freaking time. Not a single time. I was helping them learn English, actually, while they were making fun of my freaking Russian. And there might be a girl who will say, oh, really? You never made fun of English? I will give you a story, and here's the story that she will give me. We were standing at Target, and her and I were also friends. She is from Russia. She's a minority in Russia, actually. She's from one of the republics. And she was actually very nice. Out of all of them, she was like the most adequate one. And I actually had a lot of very high hopes for her. She lives in Sweden now. And I had so many high hopes for her because when the invasion started, she actually posted quite a bit of stuff that was in support of Ukraine. And then like a week later, she stopped. But so we were standing at Target, and she said something. If I could, we couldn't get a cab because my phone died and her phone didn't have service bars. And so I was like, why don't you just call a cab? Because I didn't realize, why don't you just call a cab? Because my phone died. And she was like, oh, if I could call a cab, I will. And I like turned to her and I'm like, no, Lena, that's not how you say it. You say, if I could call a cab, I would. If I can call a cab, I will. And she was standing there arguing me, and she was standing there arguing me on why it's not right and why she knows for sure that she said it the right way. And at that point, because I mean, I know she's wrong. Like, I absolutely know she's wrong. Like, it's not if I could, I will. It's if I could, I would, and if I can, I will. And I was trying to explain it to her from like a reasonable perspective of tenses, being like, hey, could, would, can, will. And she just like wouldn't take it. And she was like, no, I know. And like she was just arguing me this whole time. And that's when I said, Lena, well, I don't want to be like that, but your English placement is much lower than mine, because it was like she was I think she was like, there were like 5 levels of English and she was like on level 3 and I was on level 5. And I was like, I think it's fair to say that I know better. And I mean, like, it was after 30 minutes of me trying to explain it by rules to her, right? And her like arguing me with nothing other than, well, I remember our teacher teaching me like this. And that was, I think, the only time that I had said something remotely shitty to someone about like language, right? But I wasn't trying to be like shitty to her. It was just like 35 minutes of her arguing me on something that was clearly wrong, and me giving her like every grammar reason why this is wrong, and her just not taking it. And at some point I just got tired and I was like, well, dude, like, I mean, clearly I speak English much better than you do. And I've given you everything that I could to like explain to you why that sentence was built wrong. And you just won't take it and you're arguing me. And I wasn't trying to be mean either. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, it's if I could, I would. I was like, oh, hey, by the way, it's not this way. Well, her teacher was in Russia. Her teacher was in Russia, so I couldn't have like check with her teacher. But yeah, at the end of the day, we like, she took out her iPhone and like the internet started working and she looked it up and she was like, and it was real. Like, I mean, I was right, because like, I mean, that that's right. And so we spent the whole like cab ride with her just being really, really mad at me because I said, hey, I speak English better than you do. Right. And she was saying that I am so like rude and I'm so full of myself and I am such a like crappy person for basically saying that and for being like, oh, I'm better than you. And it's funny to me that a Russian person would tell me that I was trying to show them that I'm better than them by simply trying to correct their language, which is something both of us came to do because both of us were going to apply to college in the US. And we were in an international boarding school specifically because we wanted to make sure that our language was enough to do well in college here, right? And like, I wasn't doing it with this like cocky, snarky thing. I was just, trying to be helpful. And someone who's Russian who was laughing along with everybody else at the Tudoy Sudoy jokes and at the Zabiri Ubiri jokes, that same person would give me attitude for genuinely trying to teach them how to speak English, right? Instead of simply making fun of them and walking around and being like, oh, could well, could well. Like, by that logic, I should have given her a nickname that was like, oh, miss, I don't know how tenses work. But I didn't, right? Because why would anyone? You just try to help a person, you correct them. If and you move on. You don't freaking make their mistake their nickname. But again, if you ask any Ukrainian kid, they have at least once in their lifetime dealt with microaggressions from Russians. Also, there is something that I found on Twitter that completely just blew my mind, honestly. And it's a tweet from one of those tanky Russian propagandists who is American, but for some reason thinks that being a Russian tanky, is super cool and all. And so they said Holodomor wasn't a genocide because you can't genocide white people. Well, first of all, that denies Holocaust then. Second of all, what do you mean you can't? I understand that this is just a stupid tanky rhetoric to say that Russia didn't commit a genocide against Ukrainians, right? But here's the thing, what is the logic here? It's the same logic as, well, actually, I didn't murder my next door neighbor because you can't kill white people. It wasn't a murder of my next door neighbor because you can't kill white people, right? It's the same logic as saying okay, so what is a genocide? A genocide is a mass assassination with an agenda of exterminating a nation, right? But it's still a mass assassination. So what are you saying? You can't genocide? You can't mass assassinate white people because they're white people? Okay. What do you mean? It is I understand. It's the same kind of rhetoric as white people can't be slaves, which is also absolutely not true because again, Ukrainians were enslaved to Russians, and I'm not using that term lightly. I'm using it exactly the way it was because we were slaves under the same pretenses as African American people were here. Here, Black people were working on plantations and they were enslaved and their rights were abused. In Ukraine, we were working in the fields for Russians and our rights were abused. We weren't paid. We were born into slavery and we died in slavery. And there was no way of getting out of slavery because technically you could buy yourself out of it with the whatever one dime that you were making while working there, but you would never ever be able to make enough to buy yourself out. And no Russian normally would buy you out. The only exception to that was Taras Shevchenko. He was born a slave and he was bought out of slavery by a Russian rich person because he was an incredible painter and an incredible poet. But they wanted to Russianize him. He just resisted, and he's an exception, not a rule. So it's just so incredibly ignorant to say, and incredibly ignorant to it's so incredibly ignorant. I don't even know where to begin with how stupid that is to say. You can't genocide white people. Okay, well that's sure. Why? Are we immortal? Are we bulletproof? Are we bulletproof? What's going on there? Anyways, the dime was often got from making folk goods. Yeah, it was from making stuff and selling it. Not even from making the money from your slave owner. So yeah, So yeah, it's an incredibly ignorant, incredibly silly, incredibly comical, and incredibly damaging statement to make. I see that, you know, American tanks in particular tend to see the world in the view of America, of the United States. It's like everything is viewed through the lens of what was possible and what was impossible in the United States. Let me break it to you. The United States is not like how things are universally. And I hope like these tankies one day understand that the US history is not world history. The things that happened in the US are not the same things that happened worldwide. And you can't just be like, oh, well, you can't like white people were never slaves because white people were slave owners in the US. Like, yeah, most white people were never slaves. You are correct. Most white people were slave owners in the US. But if you look at Eastern European history, for one, it is a whole different ballpark because, well, people still needed free labor. And on our continent, there were no other people to enslave than white people. So that's what other white people did to other white people. Plain and simple like that. Okay. So, we are going to start on the news. Also, we're going to start on the news, and before we do, I'm going to do a little announcement-y thing that I guess I'm going to remind you guys more often now. One, I'm streaming on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter at the same time. So if you are watching on one of these platforms and you prefer another one of these platforms, you can easily switch, and all you have to do is basically just look up Yulia on any one of these platforms. That's Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. On YouTube, actually, if you watch on Twitter or if you watch on Twitch, I would highly suggest that you follow me on YouTube if you have one, because YouTube is where I release the interviews with Ukrainian defenders and other interesting Ukrainian figures. And that is also where you can rewatch my streams if you missed them, because they're saved there forever, not just a couple of weeks like Twitch. And yeah, and also, if you don't follow me on Twitter, please consider following me on Twitter, because that's where I post most of my Medium articles. That's where also like give a lot of unhinged commentary, because Twitter doesn't really censor as much as other places do. And that is also where I am 24/7 outside of streams. And if I'm not streaming, you know, I'm giving some unhinged commentary on Twitter at least once a day in big batches. So if you don't follow me there, consider following me there. Also, in the comments, I just saw someone say, hello from Russia. What are you doing here? Hello from Russia what? Hello from Russia, I'm sitting on my couch watching your people die? Hello from Russia, I don't want to protest because I'm scared of jail? Hello from Russia, I'm the reason why you sit here every day talking about the news, because me and my people are cowards that want to complain about our government and do nothing about it? Hello from Russia, good to see you. I'm happy that most Ukrainians now have to fight information war, because, you know, our people choose to make 50 rubles a day for vodka by perpetuating super crazy, dangerous Kremlin rhetoric. Hello from Russia. Yeah. Hello. Hello, Russia. What are you doing here? What, you want a cookie or a candy for listening to a Ukrainian? And being like, hi, I'm from Russia. I'm a good Russian. I'm listening to your stream. Ah. Well, what you could not have said just hello. You had to say that you're from Russia, so I would give you some sort of special attention, or I would give you a special thank you for being here from Russia. I won't. Because while you're writing hi from Russia, I am, I'm here trying to make sure that my friends survive tomorrow. So yeah, hi from Russia. Hi to you too. What are you doing other than watching this stream to facilitate me not having to be here reading the news every day about the invasion of my country? And to someone who says, girl, not every single person from Russia is radical, I don't care. I don't care what they are in Russia. What I care about is no one should come in onto a stream of a Ukrainian and be like, hi, I'm from Russia. Because why are they saying they're from Russia? Because they want what? They want a special recognition for being from Russia? Like, oh, I'm from Russia, but I watch your Ukrainian stream, I care. No, you don't. You don't care. Because what are you doing to stop this? You're doing nothing. You're quite frankly watching us die on your propaganda TV, and then you're quite frankly listening to me talking about us die, while you sit on your couch and you say, hi from Russia. So don't tell me what Russian people are and what Russian people aren't, unless you have been quite literally in the situation of hundreds and hundreds of years of Russian aggression. Don't speak on this. I don't care if they're radical. I don't care if they're the nicest person in the world. My opinion about Russians has formed already. And it has formed not because of stereotypes, not because of groupthink, not because of whatever, but because of their actions. And it continues to be reinforced every day by the fact that they don't do anything. There are hundreds of thousands of Russians in Germany, and hundreds more just fled Russia from the war because they don't want to kill Ukrainians, right? And now that they're in safety, they're doing so much to protest the invasion and the war that they so don't agree with. They're doing so much as nothing. You know what they are doing, though? They're protesting pro-Russia, though. They're not protesting against the war. You don't see hundreds of thousands of Russians on the main square of Berlin protesting. You see Iranians do that, and there are way less Iranians in Germany than there are Russians. But you don't see Russians do that. They're in safety now. They fled. They're so against the war, though. And they couldn't, their excuse is that they can't protest in Russia because they're gonna, I don't know, go to prison. Well, what's their excuse now in Germany? They're fine. You know what they are doing in Germany, though? Harassing Ukrainians in large numbers. What they're not doing, talking, even so much as talking against the war. So, yeah, thank you. I don't care if there is a Russian on my stream and if they're radical or not. They're useless and they're doing nothing. Nothing. And then they want credit for saying, hi, I'm from Russia. I watch you. I support Ukraine by doing nothing, by saying hi from Russia. Okay. Okay, so Armin here says, Armin here has posted his quote of the day, and I'm going to read it. There is no possibility to trust Vladimir Putin. He will do whatever he wants with no rationality whatsoever. Alvina Alametsa, member of the Finnish parliament. Once again, hooray for Finland. Yeah, Finland has been doing very, 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 very well in public speaking. Well, Finland has been doing in general very well on helping, as the Baltics have in general, but also Finland's leaders have been very good at speaking out. Also, Cindy, what are you doing? Hey, Sin, come here. Come here. Yeah, Finland officials have been very good at taking a very firm stance against Russian authorities, and Vladimir Putin. Also, Gianmarco is asking if I have seen the Mariupol video. Yes, I have. He's referring to the video of mass graves upon mass graves upon mass graves. And, you know, all I have to say to that is, like, if you are shocked from the mass graves, then you brace yourselves, because that doesn't even encompass 0.1% of the atrocities that happened behind the wall of occupation of Mariupol. And you know, that's nothing. It's really, really nothing. Unfortunately, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And that iceberg is, you know, is big enough to sink Titanic. Yeah, so it is. Mariupol is going to be much, 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 much worse than that. Mariupol is going to be one of the worst humanitarian catastrophes the world has ever seen. When we liberate Mariupol and when we push Russians out of there, honestly, I don't want to imagine. I can't imagine the level of horror that's going to come out of there. Hi, Angela. So yeah. Hi. Que legal. Que legal. Yeah. Okay, let me go grab a treat for Cindy, and I will be back in a second. She's just like being very, you know, treat asking. So I kind of want to give her one, and I will be back in a second. Cindy, hello. Well, say hi at least here. Hey, come here. Cindy. Okay, wait. Wait, baby. Wait. Cindy emerged. Cindy, say thank you, Kayla, because Kayla got you these. Come here. Wait. Okay. You know, little grumpkin. Little grumpkin. Yeah, so Kala Harris says here on Twitch, estimates is like 100K civilians dead, and now there is a humanitarian crisis there. Of course, you cannot confirm stuff for now because Russians would not allow anyone there, but that's the thing. The numbers, actually, last time I looked at them, they were much higher than this, and that's just from the local morgue, so that's not accounting for that's not accounting for mass graves and for, you know, Mariupol Drama Theater and for all of the apartment buildings and for all of the bodies that were just disposed of along with the rubble and for things like that. It's horrifying. And one of the things that is the most horrifying is that, you know, Russians have done this thing where in the drama theater, they just quite literally poured concrete over the bodies of dead civilians, and it's drama theater, so it's a theater. There's going to be plays there. And so they're quite literally expecting to be dancing on people's graves. Also, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but there are NATO troops in Romania. There are NATO troops that have been deployed to Romania, and there are special troops that are going to be deployed from various NATO countries, like the equivalent of Navy SEALs worldwide, that are going to be deployed to Romania, and they are instructed apparently to cross the border into Ukraine if Russia is going to use a dirty bomb. So a follower of mine is Romanian, and here is what they wrote to me. And so far, everything they have said has turned out to be true. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paris. Thank you so much. So she wrote, "Hello, dear Yulia. A few days ago, I wrote a comment regarding the lack of information from Ukraine. I told you that NATO's troops are camped near the border between Romania and Ukraine. And in case Russia is going to use a dirty bomb, they will cross the border." Thank you so much. Now, I don't know if you heard the news or not, but I'm going to tell you the update information about this subject. In the following couple of days, Portugal and other European countries who are NATO's members are going to send into Romania their elite troops, similar to Navy SEALs. The military mission of the NATO's troops is to help Ukraine's military forces, especially Azov units, to liberate Crimea and Donbas region. Putler heard about NATO's new plan of intervention, and he started to threaten my country. We don't care about his threats, but at the moment, the big breaking news in Romania is that NATO's troops are at Suceava and Botoșani, two Romanian counties that are sharing a border with Ukraine. So that is an interesting update. If this proves to be true, then that's a big one, because if those troops are instructed to cross the border, if Russians use a dirty bomb, then that's insane. And that's very good. That's incredibly good. And then and then also if they are instructed, and then if they're instructed to help Ukraine in combat, then that is also good news. But again, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt. We do know that there are that some troops have been deployed to Romania. We don't know what what their objective is and what they have been instructed to do. This is just, from hi Romania. This is just from what one of my followers said. But yeah. Also, to someone who says good, that means war. Newsflash: there has been a war with thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of casualties. Did you miss that memo? There has been a war. But yeah. Okay. All right. So, hi Tammy. I meant World War, dear. Well, first of all, I'm not your dear. Second of all, we are already in World War. It's just, we live in modern times, and World War means a different thing. And also, you for some reason think that World War automatically means the use of nukes. It doesn't. And fortunately for you, because Ukraine is holding literally the gates to Europe, Russia is not going to be able to get to you anytime soon. So, yeah. Even if World War starts, that doesn't automatically mean that Russia's gonna nuke everybody. Okay? Oh my gosh, there's so many trolls on this stream right now. Love it. You know, anytime there are bots showing up, that means that I'm really disturbing them. So welcome, honeys. Welcome, dear. Итак, я вмію розмовляти українською. Звичайно, я народилася і виросла у Львові. So anyways, there's like a ton of Russian trolls over there. I'm just going to, I'm just going to let them live, and I'm not going to pay attention to them because it's not worth it. You're not worth my time. Anyways, I love Russian bots. Okay, Ukraine's defense minister optimistic about new tanks, fighter jets from allies. Within a few weeks, the first batch of 10 American Switchblade 600 drones should arrive in Ukraine. Alexei Reznikov in an interview with Politico. Situation in Bakhmut through the eyes of a warrior. Please listen, he's so sincere and real. The situation there is difficult, but our defenders are determined and strong. They know why they're there. Glory to the heroes. Українську. Wow, that's the first time that somebody had asked me for advice on learning Ukrainian, not English. Yes. Well, I mean, I think it's very good to watch movies with Ukrainian voiceover or listen to Ukrainian movies with English subtitles. Hello, dog. You guys on YouTube and vertical platform and horizontal platforms are missing out on Cindy just literally having come over here, set her butt on top of me, and like she's staring at the camera. I don't know what just happened, but it's incredibly cute. Cindy. Hey, Grumpkins, what do you want? So this is Cinny, my dog. Her name is Cinny, like multiples of blue in Ukrainian. I call her Synya. I also recently found out that Syny in Odessa means eggplants. So now I just use an eggplant emoji when describing like walking my dog or doing anything with my dog, because people get very confused and it's really funny. Okay, so that is not something that you can eat. That is my hair clip. Anyways, so this is Cinny. Yeah, for those of you who did not know, this is Cinny, and we have Cinny emotes in the subscription feature. Hello, how can I help you? Okay, so I'm going to try and send this video to my laptop so I can show it to you. Really, it's not going nearly as slow as everything else. Also, to everybody, oh my gosh, there's so many people that are asking me about English. I'm not a so okay, first of all, I'm not a teacher, guys. I really don't know. Second of all, the reason why I speak English as well as I do is because I speak it since I was a kid. I did learn it in Lviv, but I learned it from a native speaker, and also like I speak it since I was a child. It's basically like one of my native languages. Okay. So I really don't have advice on how to, I don't know. Just like watch native speakers, watch how a native speaker's mouth moves, which sounds weird, but helpful. Okay.
Добрый день, Олег, сам из города Киева. Все время представляюсь «Доброго дня», мы за Болони. Сейчас находимся в Бахмуте. Обстановка тут тяжелая, у людей нет света, воды, связь очень плохая. Сегодня, кстати, не очень хороший день. Наши ребята на позициях, мы потеряли одного братына. 2 раненых, одного потеряли. В 2 часа ночи был бой. Эти свинособаки полезли. Вот. Погиб товарищ наш, светлая ему память. В день по 3-4 атаки бывают. Вот. Плюс работают там минометы, ствольная артиллерия, танки. Да, вот волонтерский дом. Спасибо огромное за этот автобус. Он большой, на 15 мест. Мы будем перевозить личный состав. И спасибо, что не забываете вот людей, которые здесь в беде находятся.
Очень просим, пожалуйста, не бросайте нас. Никто не нужен. Нам нужна наша Украина, наш город, наши дома. Вам удачи.
Мотивация только одна. Это наша земля. Мы никому ее не отдадим. Мы будем сражаться до последней капли крови.
So, yeah, so this is a Ukrainian soldier who was talking about the Bakhmut front. And I think, you know, these stories are so incredibly important to hear. You know, that's the thing. Anytime somebody says like Ukraine needs to make concessions for peace and stuff like that, it's like Mariupol is what would happen to Ukraine if Ukraine made concessions. That's one. And two, when some of you say Ukraine has to make concessions for peace, keep in mind that what you're actually saying is you people need to literally die and let Russians assay you, genocide you, and take away your culture and language so we don't have to watch the news about the war anymore because we're tired. So anytime you say that, just keep in mind that that's what you're actually saying. There is, so I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I do like to pronounce names right, but I think it's Jian Nguyen, who is asking, do you think Putler will blow up the dam near Kherson? Basically, first of all, I just saw a troll comment, and before you bump them, let me respond to them. But let me first respond to a normal person, okay? Honestly, I don't know right now. No one knows because there is so much international attention on. There is so much international attention onto that dam. Swan. Oh, okay. Swan. Thank you. Or Swan. Thank you so much for correcting me. I really appreciate that. Because I really, you know, like my name is foreign and people mispronounce it all the time. And I'm very thankful when people actually ask me how to pronounce it right. So I try to do that in return to people too, because it's so annoying when people, you know, just assume how to say your name and go with it and don't ever ask you what your name really is. So thank you for correcting me. But I don't know if they're going to do that. There is a lot of international attention on that. And also Ukraine is asking for IAEA to be present. There is a lot of satellite images of the Kakhovka Dam being mined, and also recently they quite literally emptied the reservoirs of water. So even if they did blow it up, it wouldn't be nearly as much of like a catastrophe as it was supposed to be had they not emptied the reservoirs. So we'll see, but that's really a 50-50 here. There is no way to tell. Okay, so troll on Twitch. Yulia, you are a typical Eastern European woman. I know your type. You don't think, but you love to yell. Yelling makes you right, you think, but it actually keeps you being an idiot. People like you are why East Europe has been struggling for the last 20, if not 100 years. Well, I beg to differ. First of all, I haven't even yelled this stream, so that means that you probably are a troll with a new account who has been coming onto my streams over and over again, you know, and you just and that means that that means that you have been stalking me, my dear. Well, that's nice. Do you not have anything better to do with your life? Because I take up so much space in your mind. Thank you. I mean, I do really like to have fans, you know, especially such dedicated ones that get booted and then you know, come back. Also, here's the thing. So this man continues, or woman, or it, whatever it is. So no, don't eat it yet. Don't eat it yet. I'm having fun. I'm having fun. Okay. So Yulia, you are ready for confrontation always. You treat everything as a confrontation. Also, there is a thing called being passive aggressive. You don't have to yell to be equally aggressive passively. So, another thing I really appreciate from this man, although he's a terrible therapist, is like, this usually in America costs money. Like for someone to analyze your behavior and help you deal with it, it's called therapy, and it's like $300 an hour if you have a good therapist. So I really do appreciate that you come here and you try to like psychoanalyze me, and help me with my problems, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, I am I'm very grateful for someone to come in here and offer me a free therapy session. I will decline it though, because you have not analyzed me right. I have had I have had therapy before, and I have gone to a good therapist before, and this is frankly a very crappy conclusion you made here. But but uh but you know you know I'm gonna decline politely, and then here I'm gonna respond to you one last time. This is a very persistent troll. Really wants to invite his analysis of me. Okay, Sigmund Freud, here we go. You're not grateful. You're coming up with fake reasons for why this is fine and this criticism doesn't bother me. It bothers you because it's first and foremost accurate criticism. Well, honey, you can think whatever you want to think. First of all, you don't bother me, you entertain me. And you think that you make me sound like an idiot, but you make yourself sound like an idiot. And quite literally, this is entertaining. Criticism sometimes does bother me when it comes from people that I actually consider worthy and from people that I actually respect, right? Because it's constructive criticism, and I'm going to take it always, and I'm going to try and better myself for that criticism, right? According to that criticism. But that has to be a person that I respect and that I care about, and it has to be constructive. And it has to be constructive. And yeah, but taking criticism from a sad, pathetic little troll on the internet who thinks they know things about me, no, that doesn't bother me. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, guys. This is just too good. This is just too freaking good. I thought this can't get better. Okay. I am one of the only men in your life who will not want to have sex with you, so you should treasure my words. So you do admit that most men in my life consider me very attractive, huh? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I can't even make this up. Here, I am one of the only men who will speak truth to you. Here, wait. It gets better. Wait. I have had sex with many beautiful women, which is why your looks are unimportant to me. So you think I'm beautiful? Thank you. Thank you. It is not a compliment to say men want to have sex with you. I mean, I don't think it's a compliment, but I mean, like, why? Yeah, I mean, it's better than the opposite. It's better when people want to have sex with you than if they don't. Just, I mean, like, hey, I for one really like having sex sometimes. I mean, not with everybody. There is a designated person for that in my life, but like, I don't know why that would be a bad thing. Oh my gosh, I am dying here. This is so good. I can't, like, thank you so much. This is like the best entertainment I didn't even ask for. This is fantastic. Thank you. Not only did this man say, hey, I find you attractive, but I'm going to covertly say that I don't care about it. Like, Now I'm a bad actress. Anyways, I'm done with this one. Please, you can feel free to eat him, but like, gosh, drool. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. This made my day. I love this. All you are doing is trying to think of a coping mechanism to deal with my messages. Dude, like, honestly, I understand that, like, I really, really understand that you have nothing better to do in life than to create multiple profiles and to go on here and that you're obsessed with me. I get it. I fully understand it. I think you're the one who needs a coping mechanism. And that's fine. It's okay. You know, we are an open community. If you want to talk about it, you're welcome to. But the last thing that I need is a coping mechanism from you, my dear. Oh my God. I need a laugh coping mechanism because I haven't laughed much in a while. Other things. I mean, it's good that you, unlike other bots, have like picked up a psychology article. It's nice. It's nice because most don't. But the problem is that you didn't take the right things out of it. You've learned the words. I will give you another word. You can use next time you want to, like, you know, pretend like you're so smart. You can use another word. It's a schema. And schema is basically like a developed coping mechanism, the same one that you use over and over and over again. You're welcome. Oh, by the way, I have a bachelor's in psychology. Just by the way. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs used photos of Slovenian government representation to claim that Ukraine intends to create a dirty bomb. So they basically took photos of like a 10-year-old photo from Slovenian government of basically saying, hey, there are radioactive things in these smoke detectors, please be careful. And they had to issue that warning because by design they had that. And so, and they took those photos and tried to pose them as Ukrainian instruction on how to create a dirty bomb. The presentation of the book by Russian ultranationalist Alexander Dugin, which was to take place at the University of Gdansk, was cancelled in Gdansk. Germany handed over 2 more Mars 2 systems and 4 Panzerhaubitze 2000 artillery systems to Ukraine. National Council of Television and Radio Broadcasting of Ukraine calls on law enforcement agencies to recognize Russian TV channel Russia 24, RTR Planet, and Первый as terrorist organizations. Agreed. On October 26th, the first plaque of the Heroes of Azov Regiment Street was officially opened in Kyiv. So this is the street of the Heroes of the Azov Regiment, and it's in Kyiv. And actually, this plaque is commemorating one of the first Azov defenders who had fallen during his service in 2014. This is the building where he lived. So the plaque is commemorating him on the building where he used to live. Ukrainian defenders fire mortars. Kharkiv region, Ukraine, October 25th, 2022. Also, the new British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, spoke for the first time as the Prime Minister about the Russian-Ukrainian war. In his speech, he accused Russia of destabilizing energy markets and supply chains around the world amid the economic consequences of the coronavirus pandemic. I'm going to play you the speech, but also I have heard that a lot of people of color actually are not celebrating that it's the first UK PM that has like Asian roots, right? They are actually unhappy about it because this is the type of person who's a privileged person who had always had better chances of succeeding, and he is like a millionaire. His wealth is more than that of King Charles. His wife is a billionaire's daughter. And they're just like a very crazy family of like incredibly wealthy people, as in like they're incredibly wealthy. And there is a lot of issues. They do like tax evasion based on like a loophole for the wealthy, and they basically keep minorities. They basically keep perpetuating the minority poverty. So yeah.
Good morning. I've just been to Buckingham Palace and accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government in his name. It is only right to explain why I'm standing here as your new Prime Minister. Right now, our country is facing a profound economic crisis. The aftermath of COVID still lingers. Putin's war in Ukraine has destabilized energy markets and supply chains the world over. I want to pay tribute to my predecessor, Liz Truss. She was not wrong to want to improve growth in this country. It is a noble aim. And I admired her restlessness to create change.
This is such a patronizing statement. He's like, I admire her restlessness to create change, but she was just not that good. And, you know, as a woman, she was emotional and really rather not good at what she was trying to do. But I admire the attempt. Really, I admire. So it was like such a patronizing little thing. It's like, I admire her tries. Also, user blah blah blah, would you choose an Asian as your boyfriend? The only reason I'm addressing this comment, which it's literally so not appropriate and not the topic here, but my husband is half Asian. So, but also it's an incredibly racist freaking thing to ask. Thank you, Netlin. Thank you so much. But sorry, this is actually, I'm like in between being very angry and very grateful. But this is an incredibly racist, stupid thing to ask. This is not something you should be asking of a person. And also, literally, read the room. What part of this is a news stream about Ukraine makes you feel like it's appropriate to ask me who I would or would not be dating? Zelensky says Ukraine has started cooperation with Israel in the field of intelligence and defense. I will not tell you the details, but after a long pause, our intelligence began to work, and I see these steps forward. The exchange of war prisoners is not only about lives saved, it's also about lives honored. This is returning the fallen bodies from captivity. The exhumation of bodies from the mass grave of Ukrainian soldiers has begun in Kharkiv region. They died in April during the retreat. On Easter, local residents put crosses at the burial site on their own and further cared for the mass grave. Moscow advises Iran on methods to suppress protests, according to the White House. Moscow may advise Tehran on various methods of dealing with protests in Iran based on its experience in suppressing mass demonstrations. White House spokesman Karen Jean-Pierre said, "Our message to Iran is very clear. Stop killing your people and stop providing Russia with weapons to kill Ukrainians," she said. Institute for the Study of War says Russian President Vladimir Putin's rhetoric indicates that he's not interested in serious negotiations with Ukraine and maintains maximalist goals of war. Putin said that Ukraine lost its sovereignty at the meeting with the Commonwealth of Independent States, security officials on October 26th, and that the United States is using Ukraine as a battering ram against Russia. So nothing new. And you know, before this, Lavrov or maybe Peskov was saying like, oh my gosh, this is going to be speech that's going to be read and reread and reread. It's going to be so big, it's going to be so strong, it's going to be so mighty, just like Russia. And then Putin comes out and says the exact same thing he's always been saying. Sinya, hey, you wanna... Why are you so restless? Also, these sweet potato things smell so good. Like, I kind of want to try them. Because normally you don't even chew these things. Okay. In the Czech city of Litoměřice, unidentified people painted a washing machine on the pedestal of the monument to Soviet soldiers. Now the monument displays a typical Russian soldier. That's so funny. Digest of the main news of the night. At night, Russians struck Kyiv region again. Several missiles arrived in one of the settlements, preliminarily without casualties. The enemy air objects were destroyed by air defense systems. In 2 hours, the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed 19 enemy Shaheds and an X-59 guided missile. The US accused Russia of trying to intimidate the UN and avoid responsibility together with Iran for violating the UN Security Council resolution by using Iranian drones to strike civilian targets in Ukraine. Spiegel says, contrary to Russian claims, the German federal government does not currently assume that one of the 2 Nord Stream pipelines remained intact after the September explosions. The Hungarian government has promised to rectify the situation with the provocative content of the online geography textbook for 8th graders, which interprets the Russian aggression against Ukraine as a civil conflict fomented by Russia, the EU, and the US. Interesting. Occupiers of Crimea claim that Balaklava TPP was attacked by an unmanned aerial vehicle at night. Mayor says there is a catastrophic shortage of teachers in the schools of occupied Melitopol because most Melitopol educators did not cooperate with the occupiers, and collaborators and teachers brought from Russia have already begun to flee. I love watching rats run from a sinking ship. The Kremlin said that they did not transmit any messages to President Volodymyr Zelensky through the president of Guinea-Bissau. The Russian-appointed authorities of Zaporizhzhia region announced the introduction of military censorship in the occupied territory on the basis of Vladimir Putin's legally null and void decree on martial law. On October 27th, selective preventative checks of citizens' mobile phones began in the region. Russians moved their occupation administration of Kherson region to the left bank of the Dnieper. Source, National Resistance Center. So they might not be fleeing, but they did move their higher-ups to the other bank of the river. Most SA crimes of Russians were registered in Kyiv region. Currently, 43 criminal proceedings have been opened on the facts of SE actual crimes. There may be several facts in one proceeding. There is reason to believe that Russia and Belarus are preparing for escalation, General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine pointed out. Ukraine has reinforced its grouping in the northern region near Belarus to counter any possible renewed Russian attack across the border. Zelensky approves increase in military budget by $9.6 billion. The Ministry of Culture and Information Policy confirmed 552 episodes of Russian crimes against cultural heritage of Ukraine as of October 26th. Putin's speech today will be read and reread, Peskov said. Meanwhile, Putin's speech. The collective West is rotten. Russian culture is being abolished. NATO is a threat. In short, as usual, nothing new, nothing important. Ukraine conducted a test of electricity imports from Europe. Against the background of Russian shelling and damage to energy facilities in Ukraine before the heating season, the possibility of supplying electricity from European countries in case of shortage is being tested. President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that Russian troops were not ready to leave Kherson, and their alleged preparation for withdrawal was an information operation. Russian dictator Vladimir Putin said that the losses of the Russian side on the battlefield are 10 times less than those of Ukraine. Right. Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin said that the United States does not yet see signs of Russia's preparation of a provocation using a dirty bomb, which it accuses Ukraine of. Antonov Airlines delivered the Airbus Defense and Space civilian telecommunications satellite from France to the United States for launch by Elon Musk's SpaceX company using the Ruslan aircraft. Russian troops continue offensive in Bakhmut and Avdiivka sectors and strengthen positions on the left bank of Dnieper River in Kherson region, General Staff reports. Zelensky says, "We will go through this darkness with dignity. The main thing is to keep the light in your heart." Zelensky, US, and astronaut Scott Kelly has been supporting Ukraine since the start of the full-scale invasion. Now he has become the ambassador of the United 24 fundraising platform and will develop the medical aid direction. His first project will be fundraising for Type C ambulance vehicles. "We are proud of the opportunity to have such an ambassador. Thank you for the powerful help to Ukraine with real actions." Oh, that's so cool. Scott Kelly is now the ambassador for Cindy. Scott Kelly is now the ambassador for United 24. That's so cool. That's big. That's awesome news. And those are also the news that I am going to Cindy. 1 second. Sorry guys. Give me just 1 second just to make sure that my dog is not doing anything wrong. Cindy, where are you going? No, baby. I'm not gonna let you go into the room alone because I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. Okay, well, that is all the news that I had for you for today. I think I need to go out with Cindy because Cindy looks like she really wants to go out. So, yeah. You guys, I will see you tomorrow, and I will try to put out more content today, whether it be articles or or whether it be probably short videos and stuff like that. I'm also going to upload all of my United 24 Ukraine briefly onto shorts on YouTube. So no, I'm not gonna. My dog is my dog. Someone says, "I give you 15 bits for your dog." And I'm like, no, my dog is my dog. Oh, Pamela. Nope. Cindy is not for sale. Cindy is my little gremlin. She's priceless. But yes, I see you guys tomorrow. Gremlin. He's my little gremlin. Okay. Bye, guys. See. You want to say bye?